The central bioregistry station floated like a titan in the void between sectors, an immense structure that spanned 17 kilometers of sterile corridors, humming with the relentless efficiency of bureaucracy. It was a monument to the hegemony's obsession with cataloging sentient species across galaxies. Species from hundreds of worlds had passed through its cold, metallic halls, their genetic data processed, analyzed, and filed away with flawless precision. Val X had worked here for 43 cycles. As a biotechnician, his job was simple: monitor, process, and catalog the galaxy's biological anomalies. He had seen everything from silicon-based hive minds to quantum beings existing in multiple dimensions, and once, even a sentient color that communicated through migraine patterns. Each day blended into the next, a monotony broken only by the occasional glitch in the system, a minor hiccup in the processing flow. But today was different. Val stood before Terminal 847C, his 6 arms frozen in mid-gesture, staring in disbelief at the screen in front of him. His terminal was flashing with error messages, errors that should not exist. His station had processed 60 billion specimens without fail. Yet here he was, staring at an anomaly that was completely, utterly beyond comprehension. The specimen, a human, sat in the holding cell behind reinforced glass, looking mildly irritated. Her jumpsuit was marked with burned stains and grease, her dark hair pulled back in a hasty, messy bun. The arrest report listed her crime as unauthorized jump drive modifications and creative interpretation of mass-to-energy conversion regulations. A typical lawbreaker, nothing unusual. Except for one thing. The system was refusing to classify her. Val reached for the data stream, pulling up the preliminary scans of her genetic profile. The readouts were clear. Her DNA, carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, the standard template for humanity, was textbook. But that's when the contradictions started. His hands moved with practice speed, navigating through cascading error logs. The scan showed fragments of genetic material, fragments from at least 3 extinct hominid species woven directly into her active genome. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and others. Impossible contamination, the system flagged. But that wasn't all. The next genetic flag made Val's pulse spike: viral DNA. Thousands of fragments embedded in her genome, some dormant, some active. The system demanded to know if she was currently infected. Endogenous retroviruses, Val muttered under his breath, his mind racing. She's carrying viral genetic sequences. The specimen Reeves, as the report said, had caught him off guard again. Her eyes, through the glass, flickered to the intercom when she spoke. "You know, everyone's got those," she said casually, scratching her arm. "Evolutionary leftovers from infections millions of years ago. They stick around, some even help. Placental development, for one." Val's brow furrowed. That was strange, but what was truly bizarre was what he found next: the immune profile. He hesitated before pulling it up. The readings were horrifying. The woman's immune system was based on what could only be described as controlled apocalypse. White blood cells that consumed invaders whole. Fever responses that cooked pathogens by raising her body temperature to near-lethal levels. And most disturbingly, the genetic mechanism that allowed her cells to destroy themselves to prevent viral replication, essentially weaponizing death at the cellular level. "Your immune system, it triggers localized cell death as a defense?" Val asked, unable to stop himself. Reeves shrugged as though it was a minor inconvenience. "Yeah, keeps cancer from spreading mostly." Val's throat tightened. This wasn't possible. Cells actively committing suicide to protect the host? The database flagged it as symbiotic pathogen integration inconsistent with sentient classification parameters. It was a paradox, one that the system couldn't resolve. But Val wasn't done yet. He wasn't sure why, but something inside him pushed him to dive deeper. He moved to her mitochondrial profile. A section of her DNA wasn't even her own. Mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses of the cell, had their own separate DNA inherited only from the mother, but in Reeves' case her mitochondria were something else. They were different from anything Val had ever encountered. The system flagged them as unknown origin. The data was clear. Her cells were holding another organism hostage for energy production. Val turned away from the screen and stared at the specimen through the reinforced glass. Reeves seemed unfazed. She was leaning back in her chair, examining her nails as if she were in a waiting room, not the subject of the most complex biological anomaly in the history of the hegemony's bioregistry. "Problem," she called through the intercom. her voice carrying that irritatingly amused tone, as though she knew exactly what chaos she was causing. Val swallowed, trying to keep his composure. "The system is recalibrating," he said, knowing full well that was a professional way of saying the system is screaming. Reeves raised an eyebrow. "Sure it is," she said with a lazy grin. "You folks always this slow, or am I special?" Val ran his four other hands across the screen, watching the flood of data cascade into error after error. There was no way this could be happening. This couldn't be real. How could one human specimen break the entire system? Yet here he was, helpless before the glowing question on the screen: classify Earth. This was an unprecedented disaster. There were over 400 billion verified worlds cataloged in the hegemony's records, and not one of them was Earth. Not a single entry. Reeves, Earth, both existed in a place the database couldn't even comprehend. He tried to breathe. He tried to keep his calm, but something in his chest tightened, and the weight of what he was about to discover pressed down on him. This wasn't just about an unclassified species. It was something far worse. "Define Earth," the system demanded again. This wasn't a failure. This wasn't an accident. It was a reckoning. The system suddenly froze, then displayed a new error more ominous than the last. No records found. Define origin planet. And the most terrifying part? The system, despite being the most advanced bioregistry in the galaxy, had no clue where Earth even was. The emergency meeting of the hegemony's Xenobiological Classification Board was a spectacle of diplomatic importance, though no one in the chamber was prepared for what they were about to face. The space itself was a vast, sterile environment. Holographic projections flickered as alien species assembled, their forms manifesting in various intricate, otherworldly shapes. The chamber's shimmering walls echoed with soft hums, vibrations only perceptible to the species who used them for communication. Val X stood in the back, his 6 arms folded, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and frustration. The chair at the head of the table was occupied by Kim Brightness, a crystalline lattice entity whose thoughts were transmitted through refracted light patterns. Their angular body pulsed as they transmitted an initial thought to the board. "We have reviewed Technician Val X's report," Kim Brightness said, their voice cutting through the hum of the chamber. "This cannot be accurate." Val's heart skipped. He had spent the last few cycles carefully documenting everything he could about Reeves, all the bizarre contradictions, and yet now, as the board assembled, it seemed as though they were dismissing the gravity of the situation altogether. His gut told him that they didn't understand what they were dealing with, and worse, they might never be able to. The board members, each one representing a different intelligent species from across the galaxies, shifted uncomfortably as the hollow projectors flickered again. Each alien had their own way of communicating. Nurse Weave, a fungal intelligence, spoke through chemical signals that translated into a slightly underwater voice. The Theolenor, a species whose aging process reversed as they gained wisdom, spoke with the wisdom of ages in a tone that sounded calm yet unnerving. And finally, the broker of concerns, a 6-legged academic from a species of pack hunters, moved back and forth, as always, packing as he thought. He had yet to speak, but his twitching legs made it clear that something far more pressing than mere classification was at stake. "What does it mean if it's real?" Theolenor's voice cracked the silence. "This human has anomalies in her very existence. Her biology is not just unique, it's not even possible within the laws we know." Kim Brightness flared. "We cannot classify what we do not understand." "The human species is unclassifiable," muttered Nurse Weave. "But even more troubling, her genetic anomalies. These contradictions could mean a single individual is more than just a species. It could be a colony." A series of murmurs rippled through the room as the weight of this realization sank in. For a species to be both a unified organism and a cooperative colony seemed not only impossible, but against every rule the board had followed for millennia. The implications were staggering. Could one organism carry within it the evolutionary force of an entire ecosystem? Val X felt a bead of cold sweat slide down his forehead. This was no longer a case of simple error. This was an existential crisis. The more they examined, the more questions arose, none of them with answers. The broker of concerns stopped packing, his sharp eyes fixed on Val X as he spoke. "So, we have here an entity that is a biological paradox, something that doesn't fit the rules. If her species is an anomaly, what other anomalies are there?" Val X felt his throat tighten. I don't think it's just her, I think she's the tip of the iceberg. His voice faltered slightly, the weight of the truth pressing down on him. There are more like her, humans, billions of them, and I don't think they belong here. The chamber fell deathly silent. The thought seemed to hang in the air like a dense fog, thick with tension. The alien species present in the chamber had always prided themselves on their advanced systems of classification, their meticulous systems of control. Every being, every form of life had a place within the hegemony's vast network, neatly filed, catalogued, understood. Yet here they were, facing something they couldn't understand, something that didn't belong. Val X ran his hands over his face, feeling the weight of the situation. How could they not see it? We need to see the human, Kim Brightness said sharply, cutting through the tense silence. Direct contact, let us question it directly. Reeves, who had been confined to the holding cell, was soon projected into the center of the chamber. She appeared as though nothing was out of the ordinary, still dressed in her grease-stained jumpsuit, her posture relaxed, completely unfazed by the galaxy's brightest minds surrounding her. She stood there, as calm as could be, like she had all the time in the universe. State your designation, Nurse Weave asked, their chemical signal translating into a voice that was slow, deliberate. Reeves tilted her head, the faintest hint of a smile curling at her lips. You can call me Reeves, freelance mechanic, cargo hauler, consultant for anything that doesn't ask too many questions about regulations. The room shifted uncomfortably. Freelance mechanic. This was the person who had cracked their bioregistry. The Thelanor spoke next. His voice was soothing yet filled with quiet concern. Your species, humans, what are you? How can you be what you are? You exist in contradiction to all that we know. Reeves seemed to consider the question for a moment, her eyes gleaming with something far more profound than the simple annoyance she had shown earlier. We're not something, she said slowly, her voice thoughtful. We're just trying to survive. Survive, Val X muttered, his mind racing. Your species' genetic profile suggests you are. A predator, I know, she cut him off with a small laugh. Apex predator, well, guess what? We fight for survival, always have. We didn't get this far by being weak. But we're also, she paused, glancing around the room at the alien faces, more than that, we're adaptable, we evolve, we learn, we change. The entire chamber fell silent. Adaptive, Thelanor whispered, as if tasting the word for the first time. Then if you are adaptive, how do you explain this? Nurse Weave asked, scrolling through a holographic display of Reeves' mitochondrial DNA. These, parasites inside your cells. Reeves glanced at the hologram as if it were an old friend. It's not a parasite, she said. It's symbiosis. We've evolved together. The mitochondria are cells, they function together, they always have. And this, Kim Brightness interjected, this apex predator biology, how is that possible? We didn't just survive, Reeves said, her voice firm, unwavering. We adapted, we learned. Every time life threw something at us, we got better. No matter how hard it was, no matter how dangerous, we kept going. That's what makes us human. Val X swallowed. What did he just hear? Was it possible that humanity's history of war, violence, and conflict wasn't the story they thought it was? Was it truly about survival, not conquest? Could humanity's true strength lie not in their might, but in their endless capacity to adapt? The room shifted uncomfortably again. The realization was starting to settle over them. Humans were something different. Something terrifying, yes, but also something new. Yet even as they sat in stunned silence, a deeper concern hung over the board. Something more dangerous was about to happen. Without warning, a secondary alert flashed on the main screen. It was a message sent from the hegemony's defense coordination, detailing the imminent approach of a military faction within the hegemony who were preparing to take extreme action against Earth. There was no time to argue, no time to debate. A decision had to be made. Do they classify humanity as a threat, or do they try to understand them? Val X's hands clenched into fists. Something was coming, something far worse than just an unclassified species. And the only question left was, what would the hegemony choose? The chamber was still, an uncomfortable silence hanging over the members of the hegemony's xenobiological classification board. For a moment, it felt as if everything had come to a halt. They were no longer looking at just another species, another entry in their vast, bureaucratic registry. They were looking at an enigma, a species whose very existence had fractured their understanding of biology, genetics, and evolution. Val X stood at the back of the room, his mind whirling. The genetic anomalies in Reeves were undeniable. He had seen many strange things in his cycles of service, but nothing like this. She wasn't just a biological paradox, she was a living contradiction. And the more they learned about her, the more questions surfaced, each one more unsettling than the last. Reeves, for her part, had settled into an odd calmness, as if she were an innocent bystander in a drama she already knew the ending to. Her expression remained unfazed as the board members continued to debate, throwing questions at her that seemed to grow more philosophical by the minute. "Your species cannot reproduce in the usual sense," Nurse Weaves said, the chemical signals in their voice sharp and probing. "Your mitochondrial DNA is strange, and this virus, it's not natural. It's not like anything we've ever encountered. How do you explain this?" Reeves tilted her head slightly, a smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "Well, it's simple," she replied nonchalantly. "We adapt, we evolve, we survive." Val X's fingers twitched, the truth starting to form like a picture in his mind. What if this is the key? What if humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weaponry, their intelligence, or their physical abilities, but in something else, something that had been overlooked for millennia? "The question is," Val X interjected, stepping forward, "how can a species with so many contradictions be classified? How can we classify something so fluid? You're not a predator or a simple organism, you're something else. You're the force of evolution itself." Reeves looked at him, her eyes suddenly sharper. "Now you're starting to get it." Kim Brightness, whose crystalline body shifted in a series of radiant flashes, turned to Val X with a measured calm. "This adaptability, this evolution, how do we account for it? If humans are able to adapt on a genetic level, this would make them unpredictable. A species capable of changing everything about themselves, almost instantaneously." The thought struck Val X with terrifying clarity. What if humanity's very survival mechanism, this constant, unstoppable adaptation, was the thing that made them both so dangerous and so unique? They didn't just evolve to survive. They became whatever the environment demanded. The hegemony had prided itself on its stable, unchanging species. But humanity was a living proof that evolution didn't always follow a straight path. "There's more," Val X continued, his voice growing more intense. "Her genetic code, her viral fragments, they're not just ancient leftovers. They're active, they're alive, and they're in every human being and every person from Earth. This isn't just adaptation, it's a biological revolution." The board members were silent. The weight of Val's words hung heavy in the air, each alien species now understanding the true gravity of what humanity represented. The database had always classified species based on certain principles: stability, predictability, genetic integrity. But humans were nothing like that. They were a species out of time, a force of change that could never be pinned down, a species whose every trait screamed flexibility. And yet, the broker of concern's voice broke through the silence. He had been packing again, but now his steps were slower, more deliberate. "You are the only species of your kind. We've been watching you for millennia, and until now we thought Earth was just another anomaly in the catalog. But now we're faced with the fact that you are the anomaly. You've existed in our systems for 12,000 years, and we never even noticed." Reeves glanced around the room, the barest hint of a smile tugging at her lips. "What can I say? You've been sleeping on us." Kim Brightness flared again, their light shifting in an expression of irritation. "You're suggesting that we've known about humanity all along, that we were aware of your existence and simply ignored it." Reeves shrugged casually. "More or less, you've been monitoring Earth for 12,000 years, right? Watching us grow, evolve, fight wars, build things. And you never thought to stop and ask yourselves what we were really doing. You never wondered why we keep surviving, why we keep changing." Val X felt the weight of her words. "You've been watching us." He paused, his voice becoming quiet. "But you didn't understand." Reeves turned to face the board fully, her demeanor suddenly more serious. "The thing about humans is, we don't fit into any of your neat little boxes. We don't play by your rules. We don't follow the same patterns. We change. We grow. We break the mold and make a new one." A long, tense silence followed. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, their various species processing what had just been said. For all their collective intelligence, all their advanced biology and technology, they hadn't seen this coming. They hadn't understood what they were truly facing. And the worst part, they still didn't know if humanity was a friend or a foe. "The question remains," Kim Brightness said, their voice hard with frustration. How do we classify a species that is so fundamentally unpredictable? How do we place Earth on the registry when it defies all known biological classifications? Reeves' smile returned, this time tinged with something like amusement. You can't, because we are the registry. You can't classify us, we classify the universe. For a moment no one spoke. Then the Theolenor broke the silence, his voice calm but filled with a deep, unnerving understanding. You are not a species, you are an evolution in itself. The weight of those words hung in the air. Val X felt a shiver run through him. This wasn't just about classification anymore. This was about something deeper, something the galaxy wasn't ready for. I still don't get it, muttered Nurse Weave, their chemical signals agitated. How do we move forward if we accept that humanity can't be classified? We'll have to redefine the rules, Val X said softly, his eyes never leaving Reeves. And that means everything changes. At that moment, an alert flashed across the central console. It was from the Hegemony's Defense Coordination, emergency military operation detected. Planet Earth flagged for immediate quarantine, military action authorized. The decision had already been made. Val X's heart sank. The galaxy was preparing for war, and humanity's only hope was to stop it in time. But would the universe be ready to accept humanity? Or would they destroy Earth before they could even understand it? The glow of the emergency military alert still hovered on the holographic display as the board members stared in stunned silence. The entire room seemed to grow colder, the air thick with the weight of what had just been decided. Whether it was the fault of the Hegemony's bureaucracy or the humans themselves didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the decision that had been made. Earth, a planet no one even knew how to classify, was now being treated as an imminent threat. Military action had been authorized. The implications were catastrophic. Val X felt his chest tighten. He'd known the stakes were high, but seeing the military operation flagged for Earth sent a chill down his spine. A planet, a species that had been overlooked for millennia, was suddenly deemed dangerous enough to warrant immediate quarantine, and the decision had been made without a second thought. I thought we had time, Val X said, his voice barely a whisper, but it felt like a thunderclap in the silence that had consumed the room. Time to understand them. Kim Brightness flared with sudden motion, their crystalline body shifting with quick flashes of light. We did have time, but that time is now over. The galaxy cannot afford another species like this. A species that is a biological anomaly, unpredictable, volatile, and adaptive. You know what they say about evolution, survival of the fittest. But in this case, it could mean the survival of a species that could bring down the entire galactic order. Reeves remained silent, standing tall, her posture unflinching as the accusations flew. If the truth about humanity was slowly becoming clear to the board, it wasn't clear to her. She knew the Hegemony was paranoid. She knew that they would never understand. But what really struck her was the fact that the Hegemony had already decided to act. Val X turned to her. Reeves, he said, his voice firm yet trembling with urgency, they're going to destroy your planet. Reeves didn't flinch. She simply nodded as if this were just another problem to solve. Yeah, figured that's where this was headed. He shook his head. You can't be serious, you're human. They've been watching you for thousands of years and now they're labeling you a threat. They don't understand what you are. They don't understand any of it if we don't stop them. I've been saying it all along, she interrupted. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Humans don't fit into your neat little categories. We're not like you. You can't label us, can't control us, and you're damn sure not going to wipe us out. But you can't just leave it at that. Val X felt his frustration bubbling over. Your world, your species, they'll be destroyed if we don't act. Reeves crossed her arms. I didn't make the rules, you did. The moment you decided to classify everything, you built a system that can't handle humanity. You thought you could control the chaos. But you can't. It's too late for that now. Kim Brightness' projection shimmered in front of them. We have been too lenient. The galaxy is too delicate to allow a species like humanity to rise unchecked. There is no middle ground now. Val X turned back to the main console, his mind racing. There had to be a way out of this. There had to be a way to show them that humanity wasn't just a force of destruction. It was a force of creation as well. A force that could adapt and survive not only to preserve themselves, but also to contribute to the galaxy's growth. But how could he make them see that? Then something unexpected happened. A sudden burst of static filled the room. The alert system flashed again, this time showing a new message from the military faction. Authorization for offensive strike to be initiated within the hour. All military fleets are en route to Earth's location. No further communications allowed. Val X felt his breath catch in his throat. The time was now. There was no room for diplomacy, no more time for debate. The decision was final. They were going to destroy Earth. Damn it! Val X's voice broke the tense silence, his fists clenching. If we don't stop them. Reeves stepped forward, her voice steady, unyielding. You want to stop them? Then we need to act now. The alien board looked to her, their expressions shifting between confusion and disbelief. To them, this was a species they couldn't understand, couldn't control. They weren't prepared for this, for the very idea that humanity wasn't just a threat, but a potential ally, or more accurately, a species that might change everything. But Val X wasn't waiting for them to make up their minds. He had to stop this. I can't do it alone, Val X said, his eyes narrowing. I don't know if I can stop them, but you know more about humanity than they do. Reeves tilted her head, considering his words. You're asking me to help you? Why should I? They're the ones who decided to fight us. No, Val X said firmly, meeting her gaze. They're the ones who misunderstood you. We've been taught to see you as dangerous, but we've overlooked everything you really are. I was wrong, but I need your help. We can't let them destroy everything. Reeves exhaled slowly, a deep, almost imperceptible sigh escaping her lips. All right, Val, let's say I help you stop them. What's the plan? Val X's mind raced. His initial panic began to fade, replaced with a singular focus. They had to act, and they had to act fast. The hegemony was powerful, but they were divided. Not all factions agreed that humanity was a threat. If he could get to the heart of their military command, maybe, just maybe, he could stop them from taking action. First, he said, his voice gaining strength, we need to hack into the military's communications. We need to convince someone that there's still hope. That humanity isn't just a virus to be wiped out. If we can buy some time, we might be able to stop the strike. Reeves didn't say anything at first. Then with a small, crooked smile, she said, I like it, it's a start. But how do you plan to get past their defenses? Theolenor's voice broke through the silence. They will not just let you hack into their systems. Reeves turned to face him, her expression now full of determination. I've got ways. I've been in and out of places a lot worse than this. We don't need to hack the whole system, just enough to make them doubt their next move. Kim Brightness flared once more. This is reckless. The military is too powerful. There's no way we can manipulate them. I've been dealing with worse odds than this my entire life, Reeves said, her voice sharp, cutting through the growing panic. If you want to save Earth, you're going to have to trust me. Val X stepped forward, his mind now set. We have to. As Val X and Reeves made their final preparations, the holographic display flashed again with a new message from the military fleet. Initiating countdown for offensive strike, 30 minutes remaining. The clock was ticking. They had minutes to change the course of history before Earth was lost forever. The clock was ticking, 30 minutes. That's all they had left to stop the hegemony's military strike on Earth. The decision had already been made at the highest levels of command. The fleet was mobilizing, and there was nothing, it seemed, that could change their minds. But Val X wasn't about to give up. He couldn't, not when the fate of an entire species and a planet was hanging in the balance. We have to move now, Val X said, his voice low but urgent. He was at the center of the operations table in the boardroom, surrounded by holographic maps and glowing interfaces. Beside him stood Reeves, her calm demeanor hiding the storm of urgency beneath. Her eyes scanned the data, her fingers moving over a console with practiced precision. Reeves was already in her element, focused entirely on the task at hand. I'll access their comms network, she said, her voice steady. We just need to buy a few minutes to stop the countdown. After that, we can figure out how to talk them down. Val X nodded. The harder part is getting through their security. The hegemony doesn't leave anything to chance, especially not now. The alien board members were still in the room, watching, their silence heavy with disapproval. Kim Brightness, the crystalline entity, was flickering in agitation. This is madness, they said, their voice slicing through the tension. You cannot just hack into their military network. Their systems are fortified against everything, including the hegemony's own citizens. You have a better idea, Reeves shot back, not even pausing in her work. Lenore, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. She is right, in a sense. The military will not listen to reason, but if you can disrupt their command center, even for a moment, you might gain some leverage. Just enough time for diplomacy, perhaps. Val X turned toward Lenore. We need more than just leverage. We need to convince them that this isn't a war worth fighting. We need to make them see humanity for what it really is. A force of change, not destruction. A species that's more valuable to the galaxy than it is a threat to it. And how do you propose we do that? Kim Brightness asked, their crystalline form pulsing with skepticism. Reeves cracked her knuckles, then glanced at Val X. I think we start by using what they don't understand. Humans. Lenore tilted their head in confusion. What do you mean? Reeves smiled faintly. You don't get it. The hegemony is so obsessed with control and order that they've never stopped to think about the one thing that makes humanity so dangerous, our adaptability. We don't need to play by their rules. We can break them, bend them, even rewrite them when we have to. Val X looked at her, understanding dawning. You're saying we use humanity's greatest strength as a weapon. Exactly, Reeves replied. We show them that we're not what they think we are. We show them that we control the narrative, and they can't stop us. They never could. For the first time, Val X saw a glimmer of hope. If anyone could pull this off, it was Reeves, and maybe, just maybe, the hegemony would see it too. All right, here's the plan, Val X said, tapping a few controls on the holographic console. We're going to access the military's communications grid and redirect their command signals. Then we'll push through their encryption layers and broadcast a message to the fleet, giving them a reason to stop the countdown. The longer we keep them occupied, the more time we'll have to persuade them. Reeves raised an eyebrow. Simple, you sure this is gonna work? Simple's the only option we've got, Val X replied, but we have to move fast. Reeves nodded, and within seconds, she was already interfacing with the military's communications network. Her fingers moved with expert precision, bypassing security protocols and planting false command signals that temporarily disabled the fleet's automatic tracking systems. Got it, she said, her voice clipped with focus. Now we just need to stall the countdown long enough to get through to the fleet. The military leaders won't listen unless we give them a good reason to stop. Val X nodded. And that's where you come in. You're the human, you're the living proof of what humanity represents. They'll listen to you. Reeves smirked, her eyes gleaming. No pressure then. Val X turned to the board members. We need every advantage we can get. We can't let them destroy Earth. You know what they're capable of. If the military acts, they'll wipe out humanity without hesitation. We have to give them a reason to stop. Kim Brightness light flickered, and for a moment Val X thought they might refuse to help. But then the crystal entity's voice resonated through the chamber, calmer now. You are asking us to risk everything. Our position, our power, our future. You're asking us to go against the will of the hegemony itself. But we will not let you stand alone in this. Lenore's voice was measured but resolute. You've shown us what humanity is capable of. We have seen it. We can't deny it. We will assist you, Val X, but understand this action will be unprecedented. We are no longer simply observing. We are intervening. Val X felt a rush of relief. They had a chance. Thank you, Val X said, turning back to the screen. Reeves, are we ready? Reeves looked up from her console, a wry smile on her face. Born ready, let's give them a show they'll never forget. The moment she hit the final command, the system flashed an ominous warning. Security breach detected. Alert military fleets engaged. Initiating contingency protocols. Val X's heart dropped. He had just triggered a response he hadn't anticipated. A response from the hegemony's military that could send them into full-scale lockdown mode. The countdown continued. It was too late to stop it now. But as the seconds ticked down, one thing became painfully clear. They were running out of time. The countdown was ticking, and every second that passed felt like an eternity. Val X watched the flashing numbers on the screen, his mind racing, every part of him screaming that they had to act. They had bought a few precious moments, but the military fleet was already on its way to Earth. They had no time to waste. They needed to stop this, now. Reeves, Val X said urgently, turning to her as her fingers flew over the console, redirecting military signals, planting false commands. We need to get through to them, now, if we don't stop this strike. I know, Reeves interrupted, her voice sharp. We're on it. Val X felt the cold sweat trickling down his neck. He couldn't afford to fail. Humanity was depending on him, depending on them. He had been wrong to doubt their strength, their adaptability, their sheer will to survive. But the hegemony didn't understand. They only saw the chaos, the unpredictability, the danger. What they didn't see was that humanity wasn't just a species that adapted. It was a species that created, that built, and that could unite no matter how different they seemed. "We have one shot at this," Val X said, his voice low but resolute. "If we can't convince them to stop the strike, there will be no Earth left to save." Reeves glanced up at him, her expression momentarily softening. "Then let's make sure we hit the right note." The room was tense, the alien board members silent as they watched the unfolding drama. The holographic projections flickered around them, the various species exchanging unreadable glances. The atmosphere felt heavy, charged with the weight of history, with the fate of an entire planet hanging in the balance. Kim Brightness's crystalline form pulsed, their voice breaking the silence. "You are asking us to do the unthinkable, Val X, to turn against the military command, against the very foundation of the hegemony." "The foundation is wrong," Val X said, his voice rising with the intensity of his words. "The military sees only what's in front of them. They don't see what we are. They don't see who we are. The strike against Earth isn't just about a military decision. It's about a failure to understand the very core of humanity. They see chaos, but they don't see the creation that chaos leads to." "Creation?" Kim Brightness echoed, the word vibrating through the air like a distant memory. "You believe humanity can create in the face of such overwhelming odds?" "I know they can," Val X replied. "They've been doing it since the beginning. You saw it in their genetics, in their history. Every time humanity was pushed to the edge, they adapted, they innovated, they built." Reeves nodded, stepping forward. "We didn't just survive because we're lucky. We survived because we know how to create, how to evolve. And you're right, the hegemony can't understand that. They don't know how to deal with something that doesn't fit in their neat little boxes. But that's why we're here. We're not just a species, we're an idea. And ideas can change the galaxy." Kim Brightness shifted uneasily, their crystal structure flickering. "This will not be easy. You are asking us to break with millennia of tradition, to abandon our established protocols. The hegemony's military will not simply stop. They will come, and they will destroy everything if they are not convinced." "I'm not asking you to convince them," Reeves said, her tone fierce. "I'm asking you to show them." Val X's heart raced. Show them humanity for what it really is, not a threat but a force that can help this galaxy survive. The silence in the room deepened as the board members exchanged glances. There was hesitation, fear, uncertainty. All of them understood the stakes. But still, there was something in Reeves' words that had made them pause. Something in the way she spoke of humanity, not as a cold, calculating species, but as a species that could change, evolve, and create something new, something more. After what felt like an eternity, Kim Brightness spoke. "We will intervene, but not in the way you expect. We will not order the military to stop. We will help you stop them. But it will be your words, your actions that make the difference." Val X nodded, understanding. They wouldn't stop the strike themselves, they couldn't, but they could give him the opportunity to act. "Thank you," Val X said, his voice filled with gratitude. "We just need a few minutes, a few moments to show them." "Then make it count," Kim Brightness said, their voice firm. The moment had arrived. Reeves turned back to the console, her fingers flying over the keys as she initiated the final sequence. The military fleet signals were being rerouted, their orders temporarily blocked. It wasn't enough to stop the strike entirely, but it would give them the window they needed. "Okay," Reeves said, her voice cold and controlled. "I've got them distracted. The fleet systems are in disarray. We've got about 10 minutes before they reset their commands and restore their protocols." Val X didn't hesitate. He turned to the communications console, a quiet determination settling over him. "This is it," he muttered to himself. He took a deep breath and activated the military's comm system. The screen flickered, and suddenly the cold, mechanical voices of the hegemony's fleet commanders were replaced by a crackling silence. Val X's fingers hovered over the console, knowing that the fate of Earth and of humanity rested on what he was about to say. He spoke, his voice clear and direct, but filled with an urgency that none of the hegemony had ever heard before. "To the hegemony's military forces," Val X began, his tone unwavering. "This is not just a mission, this is a test. A test of what humanity really is. You've been told that Earth is a threat, that we are a species to be destroyed. But you've been lied to. Humanity is not the enemy. Humanity is not chaos. Humanity is the future. Reeves stepped back, her expression unreadable. She knew what was at stake. She'd seen it before, an entire species written off, overlooked, cast aside. She couldn't let that happen to her people. We are not perfect, Val X continued. But we have learned, we have adapted, and we have created. The very thing that the hegemony fears is the thing that makes us unique, our ability to change, to survive, and to build new futures. We are not your enemy, we are your ally, and we will prove it. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. This is your last chance. Do not destroy Earth. Do not destroy the species that has the potential to change this galaxy for the better. Do not make the mistake of assuming we are a threat. You have underestimated humanity for far too long. As the final words left Val X's lips, the screen flashed a new message. Military fleet has received directive to proceed with offensive strike. Failure to respond will result in immediate execution of Protocol Omega. The countdown was almost over. But before Val X could react, a new message appeared, this one marked with a crimson red, unauthorized message detected. Initiating lockout protocol. Military fleet rerouted to new coordinates. Val X's heart pounded in his chest. The military was about to change course, but would it be for good? Or was this just the beginning of the final battle? Time was running out, and Earth's fate hung in the balance. The moment the military fleet's rerouting began, the tension in the room became palpable. The countdown timer on the main screen, once showing a grim and steady march toward Earth's annihilation, now flickered as its signal was temporarily interrupted. The decision was hanging in the balance, the military's response caught between two worlds, the old directive to destroy and the new, uncertain message Val X had just broadcasted into the cosmos. Val X's heart pounded as the final seconds of the countdown ticked away. The clock was down to 3 minutes. But then a strange, unexpected thing happened. The screen flashed a new notification. Military fleet has deviated course. Rerouting to alternative coordinates. Earth's location confirmed. For a moment, Val X stood frozen. Had the broadcast worked? Had they bought enough time for the fleet to second-guess their orders? Reeves stepped closer, her eyes scanning the data on the console, her brow furrowed. This isn't over yet, she said. That could be a trick, a way for them to cover their tracks. We've only stalled them. The decision to fire hasn't been reversed. Val X nodded grimly. I know, but we've forced their hand. Now we need to make sure they understand what they're really dealing with. The alien board members were still in the room, watching with a mixture of disbelief and reluctant fascination. They had come to see humanity as an unpredictable variable, a species that didn't fit their neat classifications, a species they had initially feared would tear apart the order of the galaxy. And now they were seeing something else entirely, a species that refused to be destroyed, that fought back, not with weapons, but with words, with ideas. Kim Brightness, crystalline form, flashed again, their light flickering as if processing the unexpected turn of events. This was not supposed to happen, they said, their voice tinged with something between awe and disbelief. Humanity is not supposed to be capable of this level of influence. I told you, Val X said, his voice soft but resolute. Humanity isn't just a species, they're an idea that can change the galaxy. Reeves, standing beside him, her eyes locked on the flashing alerts, said, and sometimes ideas can survive even the most brutal attacks. We're not here to fight the hegemony with force. We're here to prove that we can adapt, we can survive, and that, if you give us the chance, we can help. Just as Val X was about to turn back to the console, a new message appeared, flashing red across the screen. Military fleet decision pending. Commanders in conflict. Confirmation required. Val X's pulse quickened. This was it. This was the moment. We've got their attention, Reeves said, her voice clipped with a tense excitement. They're questioning their orders. A few seconds passed, the room holding its collective breath as Val X waited, praying that his words had worked, that humanity's message had been received. And then, finally, came the notification. Military command confirms deviation. Earth strike canceled. Pending review. Val X exhaled, relief washing over him like a tidal wave. The military fleet, at least for now, had been halted. Earth was no longer on the verge of destruction. The momentary hesitation in their orders had bought them precious time. But then came the follow-up message, military review pending. New directive will be issued in 72 hours. Fleet status remains at alert level. Reeves let out a long, controlled breath. It's not over, she said, her voice steady now, more confident than before. But we've made them doubt, and doubt is the seed of change. Val X turned to face the alien board members, his heart still racing. This isn't just about humanity anymore, he said. It's about the hegemony understanding that we are not a threat to their power. We are a force that can help them, if they let us. Kim Brightness shimmered again, their voice low. The military is still uncertain. We will need to be involved if we are to stop a second strike. You must be prepared for that. I'm not asking for another strike, Val X said, his voice firm. I'm asking for a chance, a real chance, to show the galaxy that humanity is worth fighting for. A chance to be a part of this galaxy, not a threat to it. Theolenor's voice broke in, slow and thoughtful. If the hegemony is willing to give this, idea time, there may be hope for humanity's place here. But it is not just a matter of stopping the strike. It is a matter of redefining what humanity represents to the galaxy. Reeves glanced at Val X, her face unreadable, but her voice, when it came, was filled with quiet power. Then let's redefine it. Let's show them what humanity is capable of. But first we need to buy time, 72 hours, that's all we have. Just as they were about to turn their attention back to the console, a sudden harsh flash filled the room. A new message from the hegemony's central command appeared, this one stark and cold. Emergency session convened. The hegemony's Xenobiological Classification Board's involvement is requested. Review of humanity's status as a sentient species pending. New strategic protocols to be implemented. Immediate action required. The flickering alert cast a shadow over the room. The fight wasn't over yet. The hegemony had one last weapon, one last chance to make their final decision on humanity's place in the galaxy. And Val X knew the worst part of it. This was only the beginning.